After Ohio State's statement win over Penn State on Saturday and Michigan's continued dominance atop of the Big Ten, are the Wolverines and the Buckeyes once again on a collision course to meet in a college football playoff qualifier on Thanksgiving weekend.
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
I've used this phrase to describe other things within the Big Ten this season, but I think it fits in this situation as well. The more things change, the more they stay the same. The change was, hey, maybe this is a Penn State team that is the best Penn State team since 2016 and 2017. Maybe this is a Penn State team that can finally get that big victory. But that change does not exist. Because here we are yet again with the same talking points. Maybe they've tinkered just a little bit, but overall, when you look at it from 10,000 feet in the air, it's still Michigan and Ohio State, possibly on a collision course to meet for a Big Ten East championship and the leader in the clubhouse to definitely win the Big Ten championship. And once again, we're talking about James Franklin. And once again, we're talking about Penn State and their inability to win the big game, to beat a top 5 team, to beat a top 10 team. The record against those teams under James Franklin speaks for itself. Franklin has done a great job, don't get me wrong, at Penn State, but his record against Michigan and his record against Ohio State is once again a talking point. And here we are, the same type of stuff that we've gone over the last few seasons. When we talk about the collision course, Michigan and Ohio State, there's one roadblock. There's one potential roadblock in that, and it's November 11th when Michigan goes to Happy Valley to take on the Penn State Nittany Lions. When we talk about Penn State, it's complicated as it pertains to maybe that roadblock and maybe them creating a detour on the road to that collision course between Michigan and Ohio State. It's complicated because throughout that game against Ohio State, this was a defense that was playing great. Sure, Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to get his. He's going to get his against almost any defense, probably any defense in college football. As good as that Penn State defense was, this is still a Nittany Lions team that has issues, and issues that need to be figured out by the time they face Michigan on November 11th. I think those issues both involve the pass, right? This was a big-time matchup coming into this game. Penn State had allowed the least amount of sacks in the Big Ten this season, and we know the talent that Ohio State has on the defensive line. It's safe to say Ohio State won that battle in convincing fashion. And then look at what Michigan has from a pass rush point of view. Penn State needs to shore things up. It continues to ring true that these wide receivers might be the weak point of the Penn State football team. We know Keandre Lambert-Smith is a good receiver. But beyond Keandre, when you get to Wallace, when you get to Cephas, when you get to some of these guys, it's apparent that these aren't big-time playmakers on the outside. These aren't guys that you'll see at maybe in Ohio State. These aren't guys that you'll maybe even see at a place like Michigan. Right now, it is very difficult for me to sit here and say that Penn State is going to be that roadblock and is going to change the collision course. And it's not necessarily about Penn State. It's more about Michigan. It is going to be insanely difficult for me, since Michigan hosts Ohio State at the end of the year. It is going to be very difficult for me. Some things are going to have to change big time for me to pick against Michigan the remainder of the college football season. Outside of that Michigan and Penn State matchup on Veterans Day, there are 0 significant challenges that exist for the Michigan Wolverines and the Ohio State Buckeyes. But here's the key to surviving for Michigan and Ohio State, because you have to survive. You've got to put yourself in a great position once you get to the game late in November to be able to win that game if you're both Michigan and Ohio State. You need to continue to build that confidence. You need to continue to get better and really make those really minor tweaks to make yourself an even bigger threat for a championship. And man, you've got to stay healthy. I'm looking at you, Ohio State, because How much different would this Penn State game have been if Ohio State would have had Trevion Henderson, they would have had Emeka Buka, they would have had Denzel Burke? You get those three guys healthy, and this puts Ohio State to an even bigger and badder level. So even though there is one minor possible roadblock on November 11th, I do believe we are where we've been the last few years. We're on a collision course between Michigan and Ohio State for a college football playoff qualifier. But I believe right now the loser of that game between Michigan and Ohio State is far from eliminated when it comes to the college football playoff. Like I said, it is going to be very difficult for me to pick against Michigan. That Michigan-Ohio State game at the end of the season is in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It is going to take a lot of forces for me to pick against the Wolverines in this matchup. If things go down that way, if you've got two undefeated teams at the end of the year, and it is Ohio State that comes up on the short end of the stick, this is a team that still has the resume to get into the college football playoff just like last season. I believe Ohio State has the best resume in college football right now. There's a lot of teams out there that have big wins. Texas beating Alabama, Oklahoma coming back and beating Texas, Washington beating Oregon, but Ohio State has two top 15 wins on the road against Notre Dame, who's currently number 14 in the country, and then this game against Penn State, who's number 10 in the country. Both of those teams at the end of the year could very well both be 10-2. Both Notre Dame and both Penn State could be New Year's Six teams at the end of the year. And you got to think, if you're a Scarlet and Gray, if you are a Buckeye fan, you're putting on, as much to your chagrin, you're putting on that Irish cloverleaf hat. You're putting on that Nittany Lion hat, and you're rooting those guys on, because if things don't work out at the end of the year in that Michigan game for the third consecutive year, you have the resume. You have the resume to get into the college football playoff. Well, here we are again. I think we are on another collision course between Michigan and Ohio State, and maybe both of them get into the college football playoff. Can Penn State make that detour? Can they create that detour by beating Michigan on November 11th? They got to get better at a lot of things for that to happen. I want to hear what you guys think. Do you think Michigan and Ohio State are on a collision course? Do you think they have separated themselves from Penn State? Or are the Nittany Lions still in contention? Can they get things together by the time they host Michigan on November 11th? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'm Big Ten Ted. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.